Hey, this is Eric from the African Homestead. Welcome back. Sorry about the background noise. My friend Varney is doing some welding using my welding machine, and so there's going to be a little bit of noise from that machine running and his grinder and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully that doesn't drown out the beautiful noise of traffic on the other side of my wall. But I tell you, it's such a big change coming from the bush back into the city, just with the noise. And the noise and the noise. I'm really looking forward to moving out of the city. This has been 5 years we've been working towards this and facing trouble for 5 years, and the door's finally open now, and we're really excited about that. But I thought I would take just a little bit of your time today and do a quick update on what's going on here at the compound in Monrovia, and just give you an update kind of on the garden, the animals, and that kind of stuff. So let's get started. Well, this is my sorry excuse for the garden and my two hunting dogs here. You can see Layla is on point. I don't know what's in there, if it's a cricket or what, but she's gonna get it. So in this bed over here is potato greens. In this bed here is potato greens. In this bed here is potato greens. And they're incredibly disappointing. Last rainy season, we had all our potato greens in this bed over here, and we were able to cut it once a week and it produced like crazy. This year, it's not. We have this bed we've replanted over here, and it's just like nothing's going on. The only difference that I've found, yeah, sorry about the noise. The only difference I found was last year during the rainy season, we had access to fresh pig manure, and since we weren't going to be eating this and not have to worry about the pathogens, we put it straight on there and it just grew like crazy. I'm sure all that nitrogen really helped. So this year we have been supplementing it with the rabbit and goat manure. So I don't know, if I know that it's going to have less maybe available nitrogen, and maybe because it's a hard pellet it's breaking down slower, but there's just nothing going on. So out of this bed and this bed up here and this bed over here, we are lucky to get enough for 1 day a week. And so if it was growing like it was last year, I should be able to feed all my animals 4 out of 7 days every week from here. So yeah, I don't know what's going on with it. If you have any ideas, maybe I just need to find some pig manure. I don't have a good way to capture the chicken manure that our chickens drop, so can't really do that. So that's the situation with our potato greens. It's pretty sad. Now our sweet potatoes, that's a completely different story. We're not putting rabbit manure or goat manure or anything on these sweet potatoes. The only thing I've done with them, I mulched them with leaves, just like I did the other potato greens. And I put biochar dust on there and ash from the biochar on there, which is going to help produce good tubers. But it shouldn't be, I mean, there's no really any nitrogen there, so it shouldn't make the greens really grow. But take a look at this. You getting it, Layla? You getting it? What is it? What do you got there? Oh, a snail. You got a garden snail here. Looks like it's not doing too well. So here you go. You're gonna be a bad snail hunter. But look at this. I have actually cut this back because it vines out so much. It's vining in. I had some vine across this bed into the other potato greens. So some of these are vining, 8 to 10 feet within, say, 6 weeks. Sorry, I got fire ants on my toes. And so, it's kind of a mixed opinion on whether you should cut these back or not. Like Jeff Lawton with his permaculture farm in Australia, they cut theirs back periodically. Other people recommend no, you leave it, because that's the sun. These are the solar panels, and so the sun gives it the energy to grow and produce good tubers. And so I've kind of taken a mixed approach. When it gets to where it's just crazy long and they're wanting to take, get out here and start rooting on the nodes, which takes away from, producing the larger tubers. One option is to lift them and the other option is to cut them back. So I've been cutting them back and it doesn't seem to really stunt them. And so I have this bed of American sweet potatoes from Aldi. They're organic. And I have this bed. It's kind of crazy. You can see I needed to use some of the fence from here and took it over to the goats. And so this is just kind of a mess. But I have these. And then I just dug up this bed this morning. And actually not even the whole bed, but from about here to here, it's probably about 3 by 6 feet. And I got this nice batch of sweet potatoes. And they've been in there probably 5 months now. And like I said, I have not done any fertilizing with the exception of putting on biochar dust and charcoal ashes. And so that seems to have helped. The only thing I made some bone meal from chicken bones when I was making broth, but I haven't used it. I thought that might encourage Layla and my other dogs to dig up in here. So I might try that once we get up in the bush, but I'm pretty happy with what we have here. I'm gonna let them dry in the sun today. Today is just rare the sun is out. I'm back from the bush for just a couple of days. I've got to do laundry and get that hung out, but that's another story. So that's the sweet potato situation. I'm just gonna leave these here until I get back from the States, this bed and this bed. And when we get back in September, I'm gonna dig all of those up and let them cure and let them sweeten up for Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners. And I'm gonna go ahead. I'm not gonna replant any slips here because there's not gonna be enough time before we move. So I'm gonna definitely take some of the slips up country, and even if they're not in the permanent location, I'm gonna get some of these in the dirt before the rainy season ends, so they can get well established, and then at least we'll have a supply of slips when we get the garden ready. Behind me is the Liberian chili peppers. They're producing a little bit, but they pretty much ran their life. And so I'll probably, again, plant some of these. I'm just gonna be throwing some seeds on the ground at the building site up country, and whatever comes up, comes up. And at least we'll have something to start with. It's good to do some of this during the rainy season, and then as the rainy season ends and the sun comes out, that's when these peppers are gonna be all up to a little bit of growth, and they'll be able to start really producing well. Over here, I just planted a bunch of this lemongrass and letting it go. And again, we're gonna dig all this up when we leave and replant it up country. And then there's something else. My wife is doing a development project, and there's something they have called a gamble seed. You can see one right here. It turns white with maybe little black spots on it, but you can pull the center out of it and thread it and use it for jewelry. And so I'll see if I can find a photo of some of the jewelry that this women's empowerment group is making. But we got some of this gamble seed, and I don't know what the proper name is, but it was just a little bare root. It looks like it's in the same family as maize or corn. We'll just do the leaf structure and the stalk. But again, we're gonna be planting a bunch of this because with these projects, we use a ton of these seeds with making necklaces and bracelets and that type of jewelry. And so these are really doing well, and we're gonna plant a bunch of that up country. The moringa tree, my big one, is doing really well. And I actually have a cutting here that I took and I just stuck it in the ground. It goes to show you how tough these moringa are. And it's sprouted out and making leaves. One thing with this tree, and I need to do this pretty quick while it's still raining, is to cut it down. I'm probably gonna cut it to about 5 feet and let it sprout out and shoot up. One of the mistakes I made with this particular tree, I was letting the seed pods mature. Looks like this one here is ready. I was letting them mature, but the problem, well, maybe it's not quite ready because it's not wanting to come off. But the problem I found, and this is my first time harvesting seed pods off moringa, is that the seed pods split open. We were having a few weeks of super heavy rains. They dried out, they split open, all the seeds inside sprouted. And so I didn't have anything to do with them immediately, so I ended up losing several pods of seeds because they sprouted. But one interesting factoid, if you eat that sprout, just break it off the seed and eat that sprout, it's like black pepper. It burns your mouth like crazy. And so I don't know, you know, with the nutrient density, if it's super high. You see some of the smaller ones here. I mean, I don't know, but it definitely has a lot of punch. So here there's some of the smaller ones. You can see, okay, this is a semi-shaded area. It gets morning shade, it gets evening shade, just midday gets a little bit of sun. You can see how small this is. This tree was planted at the same time as this tree. And so definitely full sun is the name of the game for moringa. The nursery that we built ran its course. All the plastic is shredded under the sun. You can see we've got weeds and papayas growing up in there. All of our bell peppers are done. Somebody's pretty excited, or their horn is stuck. And all the dill is done, and I didn't get the seed harvested. So somewhere down in this ground is all the seed, and maybe the next person who rents this place will get it. Same thing with all of our tomato. I'm not really putting any effort into this garden right now because our focus is up country. And so, oh, there's a tomato plant that's still hanging on, but not doing really anything with the tomato plants. But did learn a lot with the dry season garden. Kind of a similar story with the compost pile. It's here. I'll probably throw this stuff in the back of the pickup one day, haul it up country, use it as a starter. But this is the freshest batch. Probably needed to be turned a few weeks ago. This one needed to be turned a few weeks ago. And but you know, it's here. I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm not going to turn it before we leave. All of our avocados are doing great and just grown up here in weeds. And again, these during the rainy season, they don't require much attention at all because they just get their water. The downside of this, the roots, I'm sure, have gone through the holes in the bottom of the bucket and are going down into the soil. You can see we still have some pineapple here. Because of the poor quality of the soil, none of them are producing, but we're definitely going to dig these up and put them down somewhere else. Here are my cashew trees that have been very badly neglected. I need to get those into buckets and get those transplanted up country for my food forest. The same thing, we have some passion fruit here that apparently loves the shade, and I've got to get that. That is just gonna, I'm just taking it out. It's not in a good spot, and it's going to end up causing damage. Here's one I'm excited about, I think. This is the passion fruit. I've got 4 of those planted, and they're just growing here. And they kind of stunted for a while, but then I noticed a few weeks ago that they're starting to bloom. Isn't that just an amazing flower? I mean, it's just so beautiful. And so my assumption was that with the blooms would come fruit. But here's the question for those of you who have experience in passion fruit, is that we have the blossom here, but then the blossom drops and I'm just left with this leftover from, and so all of these places have had blossoms and they've dropped. So am I correct in assuming that the fruit won't set there, or maybe this is where the fruit's gonna be? I don't know. So those of you, sorry about the grinder again. Those of you with passion fruit experience, please give me some advice on what to expect. I'm really hoping we can harvest some fruit to take the seeds up country. Otherwise, I'll just have to ask around until I can find someone that has some fruit available. Now, as far as my rabbits go, they're still here. They're still growing. I'm not breeding them. In fact, I've decided I'm not going to breed them until we're relocated up country. So we're looking at 2019 before we do any rabbit breeding. So with that in mind, since I'm having to buy the food every day, since my garden is not producing like it should, I'm pretty much settled on the fact that I'm either going to sell or cull all the rabbits, harvest them or sell them. Maybe I'll keep a breeding pair. I haven't decided yet. It's not that hard to drive up to the Agricultural Research Center in Ganta and buy, you know, another male, maybe 3 females, and start over next year. And so I just haven't decided. Just make life a little bit easier if I don't have to worry about maintenance on the cages and feeding the rabbits and that kind of stuff. As far as the goats are concerned, I have some good news and some bad news. The good news is these twins are doing great and their mom is doing great. The bad news is the other goat and her twins developed some problems. The mother and one of the twins got what I'm pretty sure is mange, and it got pretty bad. The baby goat, both of those goats were not doing well. They were probably a third smaller than these twins from the beginning. Even though they were born a week earlier, they weren't growing, they weren't thriving as much. They were more sickly. Even the mother, before she gave birth, didn't look pregnant because she was so thin. And so one of the goats, actually the one who did not have mange, hey, leave it alone. The one that did not have mange suddenly died one day. And then probably 2 weeks later, the one with mange died. That would have been about a week ago. So I started thinking, okay, if this mama goat, maybe she's not a good milk producer. Her udder was never very big. She also is not a friendly goat. She didn't like to be handled. And I thought, well, if she's genetically not going to be a good producer, if she's not a good mom, if her offspring are not strong, then there's no reason that I need to keep feeding her and keep her around. So we culled her last week and have been enjoying some really sweet goat meat in our soups. I enjoyed some last night. And so, yeah, the bad news is she didn't work out. The good news is I'm not feeding her, but she's feeding me. So the chickens are here. We have a rooster. So our wall here, you know, as I've talked about before, is anywhere from 7 to 8 feet. And we've had 2 different roosters from our neighboring community that will fly over this wall. And so they have blessed us with some chicks. We haven't had chicks in probably 2 years. And so it's kind of nice to hear the peeps as they are around. Of course, they can go straight through this chain link fence and run around, but so far none of the dogs have killed them, so that's kind of nice. And oh, there's the rooster right there. Hey man, how you doing? We probably aren't going to keep any more. Here's all the potato greens and some weeds from the American sweet potatoes that I harvested today. So the goats are going to be able to spend the rest of the afternoon enjoying that. Well, that's it for today's garden and animal update. I hope everything's going well with you.